I need to replace the top of my guitar. Oh, I don't like the way this sounds right now. Is this something you recommend? And what is the best way to do it? Each guitar is case by case, so you need to really study the pros and cons. Now, recently I did retop one of my guitars. This guitar is over 15 years old, and it got a little wild and crazy at a gig, and this is what happened. So I decided that the best thing to do at this point was to retop it. However, the guitar was a great guitar, and the owner loved the way it played and the sound of the instrument. So when I retop that guitar, I'm gonna make darn sure it sounds very similar to the old top. So what I did is I started by measuring the frequencies of that top, of the box, and of the back, just like Trevor Gore teaches in his books. And so if you want to learn more about that, go get Trevor Gore's books on the design and the building of instruments. So I measured all of the frequencies and wrote those down. That way when I produce the new top, I can get as close as possible to those new frequencies. I then had to remove the neck, not a big deal in my case because I do a bolt-on mortise and tenon neck joint. And so all I had to do was heat the end of the fretboard and use a spatula to remove that and then unbolt the neck, and voila, the guitar no longer has a neck. So now things started to get interesting. You got to remove that old top. What I decided to do was to route the old top off of there and then cut the bindings out where they go through the kerfing. And you do need to sacrifice bindings and purflings at this point. Now in this case, this guitar was so damaged that it damaged a lot of the kerfing. And so I just decided to go ahead and remove the kerfing and install new kerfing. And that's what I did on this guitar. In the meantime, while I'm doing all that work, I am go ahead and producing the new soundboard. This guitar was a little different than the previous guitar. Previous soundboard, I did scallop bracing. And I haven't done scallop bracing for over 10 years. I'm doing what I call now ramped bracing. And I have a set of plans on my website, the Luthier Academy, that shows that new design if you're interested in the plans. So I produced the new top. Then I had to fit it to the rims. After it's fit to the rims, then I start measuring frequencies again as I build. And I want, like I said, I want to get as close to those original frequencies as possible. So I do things during the build to manipulate those frequencies. Once the top's fit, then I routed for the binding and purfling channels and installed the new bindings and purflings. And I just happened to have the same piece of wood that I used 15 years prior to make those bindings and purflings. I still had a piece of that wood, so I was able to reproduce exactly the same look for the bindings and purflings. Now things get really interesting. You can go ahead and put the neck back on. I finished the neck on the guitar, neck and body together, so I just go ahead and put it right back on. If your neck angle has changed, then you need to perhaps do a complete fret job and re-level and radius your fretboard. So that's something to think about as well. So after the finish work, and I had at least a 50 day cure time on this because I use traditional lacquer, then you have to level and buff it and all that kind of stuff. I was able to use the same bridge and the pickup in this guitar. I was able to save the pickup and install it again in this guitar. And the way I did that is I used a solvent to dissolve the glue that was holding the transducers to the under the bridge patch, and then slowly and very carefully remove those without damaging them, and then I was able to install them in the new guitar. And I'm happy to report that after all of that work, after doing the setup, putting the strings on, I measured the frequencies. I was in just a few hertz of the actual previous top frequency, and I was spot on with the box and the back frequency. So there should be very little difference in tone and response for this instrument, and I'm hoping that that's what the owner is going to say when he comes and picks it up. I hope this helps you in making your decision, and if you decide to retop it, this will give you something to go on. Happy building.